Hello there, everybody. This is Tigitar here, and welcome back to another episode of Tigaria building. Here we have part number 8. I believe that's correct, which actually breaks us past the halfway point on this fast-forwarded time-lapse series. And this section is where I actually do most of the finalization of the core of Tigaria, I guess you could call it. Well, I guess it's hard to define certain areas of the build, but we're here basically everything between the outside edges of the block display on the left and then the tool and weapon display on the far right, kind of between there. So last time we had sort of capped off this area with the boss display, and right above it the armor and vanity display with a bunch of mannequins. So then, to fill in various dead spaces and gaps and here and there, I wanted to bring a little bit of life and texture and color still into the world in these little open areas where there's space. So I kind of came up with a few ideas for small filler objects, basically, just to add a little bit of character to the world. And so the first thing that I went about adding in are these little, they're kind of little planter boxes or floating garden spaces, where they're just little brick floating energy supported somehow, I don't know, use your imagination, little planter box platforms or enclosures to plant plants in. That's kind of all there is to it, really. And so I had a couple variants. Actually, I used either, well, there are a few, I guess. I either placed grass, jungle grass, or stone with moss on it, and kind of just randomized those three options and built them at varying sizes. You can see some of them are only like 5 blocks wide. Some of them are like 7 or 9. I think they're probably all an odd number in width, so that I can have that one little emerald gemspark block in the middle for symmetry. And then inside of the little boxes, I just put little flowers and plants, either growing on the grass or growing on the moss, to fill in a little bit of space. And here you can get a little bit of a better picture of the actual map view, kind of where everything's laid out now. And you can kind of see how I've been spacing these little planter boxes in. So I had the base boxes sort of spread around, and then I felt like there was definitely still room to play with, so I started messing around with other decorative ideas. One of which were these sort of small floating stone shards or mini monolith structures floating in the background. And so that's kind of what I started messing around with, different types of stone and texture, just to create some floating objects to add character and color and more unique shapes into the world here. So I started messing around with actuation. I got the rubble maker out and started using paint and the floating teleporter trick to cause the rubble maker placed furniture to float, and then blended it in with the rest of the rock formation using paint and actuation and stuff like that. So that was kind of my strategy here. I figured out I could do fairly detailed but still non-obtrusive floating stone shards and structures which kind of added a little bit of character here and there and helped to fill some of the empty spaces between different displays that I already had in place. So that's kind of was my idea, just to add a little bit of fullness. Now I did have a couple of spaces in particular that were larger, like a little bit too big just to fill with this type of stuff. So I had to come up with sort of a standalone build to include in a couple small areas. And we'll get to that, I think, either after this or partway through this section. I can't remember which order exactly, but in similar fashion to these little, I guess, furniture additions, I would call them. I added a little, like, ice cream shop and also a refreshment shop for variety and character is all. But I did spend a good amount of time on these little floating stone there's a word I'm looking for, like additions or features. Floating stone features, that's probably the best way to put them. That's what I've been looking for. Because as you can see, there's a little bit of a process between placing the blocks themselves, painting them the right color, hammering them so that there are smooth and unique edges here and there, then actuation, along with placing the rubble maker made furniture, painting that the right color, and then finally walls painted correctly to smooth out the transition and make sure everything's covered behind everything. And then on the outside of those, to keep the walls from pooching around, using echo walls to keep everything contained. So each little feature here did take quite a bit of time, but as I went, I got quicker and quicker at it. So they came up faster and faster, and they did, I think, serve their purpose of, adding in just a little more fullness and color and shape to the build here. Just basically kind of making it feel more like an environment and less empty and lifeless, kind of. But that was the main idea for all of these. So I kind of initially got the planter boxes outlined and laid out, but I needed the grass and or moss to spread. So after I got those in place, then I moved over to the little floating rock features and got those all worked on. And then after that, I was able to go back to grab all my plants and flowers and everything and fill in the planter boxes. Same with actually heavy use of the rubble maker for the planter box filling as well, because there are so many little natural plant furniture items now that you can place with a rubble maker that are really cool. A lot of them kind of naturally grew on their own as well. The only trouble with that is, honestly, in the past I would have just left the naturally grown plant features, but and greenery, but you can accidentally clear them out with like a swung weapon if you don't have the guide to what's it called? There's a guide to critter companionship, and then there's like the other one that they added, nature something. Oh man, I can't remember now. But then you can combine them and make the item that I now always have on me. And I can't remember what that one's called either. I know it for sure, but anyway, because you normally can swing and accidentally break natural furniture, I mostly went through and just refreshed them with the Rubble Maker placed furniture, because that stuff doesn't break when you swing into it. You have to intentionally hit it with your pickaxe to remove it. Here are the two larger sections of emptiness that I wanted to get filled in with something a little more significant than just the little floating rock features and floating planter boxes. So I got a couple of little larger platform structures laid out and ready to sort of build on. One there on the left that I had just finished up, and that's kind of above the painting display. And then again over on the right, I actually have these couple of tall trees, natural from when the world is created, and I had those left in place and hoped to incorporate them as a feature and use them in the build eventually. And so it was finally time to start working on that. I basically copied the small little platform that I had on the left, and then I went and had space to build on, basically. And what I decided was on the left I would do a little like ice cream parlor type build, and then on the right here would be like a drink or beverage refreshment shop, as well as like a small little park area on the right here with those trees in it. So I got kind of just going on that. Ended up just doubling up on the full platform size on the right here, and then just added some curved little like hanging sort of like hanging bridge style bridges to access the right little island here. I also needed a way to climb up the gazebo for the mount display gazebo, because I again, as I've mentioned, I wanted the whole world to be explorable with zero mobility accessories or anything, so you can just generate a new character and jump into the world and fully explore it. So I had to make sure that was doable and not too painful. And then got going on designing a little shop building. So I didn't really have anything too crazy in mind, but I wanted a unique shape that fit in this space that I had. And so I was basically just going for a little simple 2-story building. Still unsure about what kind of blocks or anything to use, but I kind of wanted it, I guess, I'm trying to think of what theme I had in mind, and I want to say, I really don't know how to best describe it. Maybe something like a small town refreshment shop theme, I guess, would be kind of the best way to put it. I think in the end I did end up generally with this type of block palette with some, I think that'd be some, what's it called? Iridescent stone bricks, or iridescent bricks. The ones you make with silt. Those bricks combined with maybe a few, those might just be unpainted. No, they're not unpainted ebonstone bricks. I can't actually remember for sure, unless there's like an old variation. I'm blanking on what specific bricks I used here, but a little bit of regular stone brick, obviously you can see that. And then for the roof is, I think, just rich mahogany. I think it's all just unpainted. There is a little bit of ash wood as well for like that little upper balcony on the left, and then the ceiling of both rooms is ash wood. But overall, this sort of purpley blue color scheme, which was just kind of a couple of colors that I found and felt like they went together all right. So I went with it, and then started kind of trying to furnish in the interior details. So again, I wanted it to be kind of like a little drink parlor or refreshment stand. So I had like a dining like table to sit and enjoy your refreshments at upstairs, and then downstairs was a little bar and a table and whatever to get your drinks at. One trick that I have ended up using over time, and I don't know if I actually do it here or not, but I see after I got these paintings out, I didn't really have any space to put the paintings here, and I guess I don't actually include them in this building. But I have found that in buildings of similar size, or when you have a really small space but you still want to put a painting in, you can actually put an item frame and then put the painting inside of the item frame, and you can echo paint or echo coat the item frame so that it's invisible, and that allows you to place even the largest paintings in a 2x2 area. So I've used that here and there, and it can be pretty handy. I quickly fill in the little park area on the right there, so that after you get your refreshments, you can enjoy the park with your kids or whatever. I got a tire swing and a couple of little benches. Nothing too special, but a nice little place to relax. And then just a little bit of touch up on the roof and the final filling of the plates and everything inside. So I think that's about it for the little drink parlor. And then I move over to the ice cream parlor on the left. To be honest, I don't remember if I had already decided when I started building it that it was going to be an ice cream parlor, or if that was something that I came up with partway through. I think I had the idea initially to start with, and so I wanted it to be kind of the classic ice cream parlor feel from the, I don't know, I mean, I wasn't around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, but you see pictures and you can still sort of feel the atmosphere from what those places tried to be like, I feel like, when I see pictures or stories about them or whatever, videos. And so that's kind of what I was going for, the retro classic ice cream parlor. A goofy, like a vibrantly colored roof with large ice cream cones on display up above the building. So I tried to do my best at building some large ice cream cone features on top of the building. Actually, there's a kind of cool thing. I forgot I did this. I think they're probably still there. But my idea there, I briefly saw it. I was trying to place crystal lanterns up there floating by the ice cream cones. And with echo coating, they're invisible, but they still produce the light. And the crystal lighting from the furniture set is kind of unique in that it pulses a gradient of like blue to purple and back colors. So yeah, you can kind of see on the roof here how it's actually quickly pulsing between blue and purple. And in real time, it's just kind of a subtle color shift that adds a little bit of a life to the little ice cream cone display on top. On the left there, on this little smaller platform that I had made, I just made a little picnic area with like a green a natural awning, or not natural awning, but like a lattice. That's what I'm trying to say. A little lattice structure with vines and plants on it. Feel a little bit cozy. Got a couple of just enough space to add a couple little trees, And then some touch-ups here and there on the building design, and then start examining the interior and see what kind of space I had to get as much detail packed in as I could. I don't know if this is necessarily ice cream themed or just barber shop themed, but for some reason in my mind there's that similar like barber pole or ice cream pole where there's the corkscrew of like red and green or whatever, with the little like colored curved cap on it. I really don't know what you call it. I think it's called a barber or something, but for some reason in my mind I also associate it with ice cream parlors. And so I try to put one of those on the front of it, and it does turn out pretty good. It's assuming that it has any relevance to an actual ice cream parlor, and people are not just seeing that and wandering over expecting to get a haircut when they're just gonna get a waffle cone or whatever. Interior, got some curtains kind of out of the squiggly wallpaper. Window curtain rods up on top of the windows with platforms, and then got a few different paints and stuff. There's not really a good way to put actual ice cream like buckets or tubs in there. Maybe you could try to use paint cans, but in item frames. But I found one of the best options were the small little, like the small marble, one of the smallest marble features from the Rubble Maker. It's like a little cup or tub looking thing, and so that worked pretty well, along with some other little miscellaneous furniture items that I could come up with that felt like I could, if you use a little bit of imagination, you can see it as ice cream or ice cream like items. And then again, obviously put a bunch of little food items here and there. Got some bananas, and then of course the ice creams themselves that you can get from mobs, and it came out pretty cool actually. I like the little ice cream as well as the drink refreshment stand. And similarly to the refreshment stand, I added the little hanging bridge for access. And then after that, it was back to the planter boxes. So I grabbed a few different walls to add a little bit of background support. Lights, importantly, for the planter boxes to show them more vividly, especially at night. And then obviously all the plants and the Rubble Maker furniture to decorate inside. It really is awesome how many different small detail furniture items there are in the game now, especially with the Rubble Maker, as I keep talking about. But it's so easy to make each one of these little planter boxes totally unique and interesting in its own way. And so it was a lot of fun. Just honestly, one of my favorite parts about building is the final detailed furnishing part, where you can go through, you place the little plants and the small details here and there, plants and flowers and all that. Some of the bigger planter boxes, I could even fit some of the larger plant furniture items, like we got some tall bamboo just here and there, some big jungle flowers, and then just spicing it up, But definitely had a lot of fun with these. Even the stone, like underground themed ones, it was easy to find plenty of unique options to make each one full and different. As far as the mushrooms, like that you find underground, the different colors of moss, and then different rubble maker rock types and stuff. So here we have kind of what the overview looked like at this point. And then my next step, I decided, was to add in critters and, yeah, critters, the critter display. So I wanted to do it in this bottom right section down here next to this snowy mountain. But I didn't want it to be snowing and blizzarding when it started to in the Terraria world. So I just wanted to artificially eliminate the snow biome if I could. So basically how all biomes in Terraria work, with a few unique exceptions, is a certain number of blocks are required within a certain distance of or radius of your character. Well, no, not radius. It's distance of your character. Basically to the left, right, and up and down. And depending on if there are enough blocks of a certain type, a certain biome will generate. And I believe now I'm starting to wonder if I'm wrong about this, but I think snow and desert are not they're not compatible with each other. So the snow and desert blocks actually kind of cancel each other out. However, I could be totally wrong about that. And if I am wrong about that, then placing all of this hardened sand actually is completely irrelevant. What I'm doing here, basically all I'm doing is removing just enough snow blocks so that at any point there's not enough blocks nearby to qualify for the biome to form. So I just spent a bunch of time tweaking here and there, trying to have enough of a landmass so that no light penetrated through and started seeing empty space or other different blocks. But I also wanted there to be few enough blocks that we were just left with the default forest biome wherever we were. So I spent a while messing around with that, but eventually got it pretty much just working fine. And then I had the space basically designated for where I wanted to put the critter display. So I kind of measure out what I've got to work with, and then I put into my lovely Minecraft pixel generator tool and start figuring out what kind of size circle I want. So leading up to this, I had thought about how to organize the critters, and I basically had 3 different sections of critters that I wanted to do independently. So one of which is one of which would be the underground gem critters, which just consist of a bunch of gem colored squirrels and bunnies, and between those two they make up a whole bunch of the critters. So that was kind of their own category in itself that I was going to have in its own section. And then there were the gold critters, which I don't remember how many of them there are off the top of my head. It's one of the questions in the Are You Smarter Than the Guide trivia game, though, so I should know. But anyway, gold critters, the underground gem critters, and then everything else is basically how I separated it initially. And so to start off with, the biggest section of the 3 was the everything else. So all the regular birds, bunnies, squirrels, the bugs, so butterflies, dragonflies, turtles, scorpions, fireflies, basically all the regular critters. I guess also including even a lot of the underground ones that aren't gem critters. So you have snails, Worms are both surface and underground. When it's raining, surface. But even like underworld critters, the lava fly, the lava snail, is that what it's called actually? And the hell butterfly. I feel like that one has the funniest name, but anyway, even the underworld critters I had included in the main section here. So the general theme still, even though there were underworld and underground critters, would be forest and a green biome. So I built the circle out of to match that theme, mainly of mud bricks, but then some chlorophyte and grass mixed in for green. Also, I did have a large emerald crystal, obviously, there in the bottom to support the weight of the whole thing. And then I started messing around with this sort of slice, I guess windmill blade or slice design for the background. I used a lot of the new ashwood walls for the twisting branch and sort of twisted wood look. And when you paint them brown, they actually look really nice and fit in with just living wood and the forest theme. So that was one of my main ideas. And then to go with that was, I guess I got a bunch of dynasty wood out as well. My whole vision, though, was generally to include enough structure to support the frame and everything, and then build off of that. But I wanted large windows, basically, of glass or just open air, where the airflow came through and it gave it more of an outdoors feel. So that was my initial idea, and I end up finding this sort of cross or clover looking design, and it works pretty good. So it adds enough structure to support and support and embrace the whole outer circular frame, kind of like a wheel actually, it looks like. But it allowed for these big window spaces as well to have for open sky and air breathing space for the critters. And then I just had to figure out how within this circle I wanted to sort of break it up into sections and then organize the critters and design platforms to display them all on. So for the critters themselves, I basically had them all in their cages, but I also wanted them in the critter item form itself, just in like an item frame or echo-coded item frame next to them. So my initial idea was to just have these little small living tree growths that each sort of held the different critters on their branches and organized them by section that way. However, I didn't really have enough space for enough of them, I think, doing this initially. So I end up building more organized and compact shelves, but still with the natural kind of wood theme to fit in. And then again, both standing on the bottom and hanging from the top, I kind of tried my best to figure out how to more compactly fit a lot of the critters in. If you didn't know, you can actually stack the critter cages. So I stacked all of the birds next to each other, but I didn't want them too compact. I did want them spaced out where they were more visually appealing. And so I ended up, since I did have the room, I tried to give them as much space as possible, just for better viewing and housing experience for them. But as you can see, my my organization idea kept shifting, so I kind of completely restarted with how I was going to go about organizing things. Oh, I wanted some water in here, maybe. I honestly can't remember the details of my process, but I did want water and water features included, so I had kind of forgotten about that. But by this time I realized that my initial idea of the tree holding up different section of critters was not really going to work too well in this space, because I just didn't have the well, mostly it's not like I'm building a full environment. It is kind of an enclosed display for the critters specifically, and so I had to be a little bit more efficient and more compact in how I laid stuff out. So that's what that's the main adjustment I ended up making. It was kind of a nice idea to have living tree branches holding up various categories of critters, but in the end, for efficiency and sort of better organization, I ended up shifting over to more organized platform shelves and stuff. Pretty big section for butterflies and dragonflies that I needed to get figured out. I think I included the dragonflies, butterflies, and all the jar placed critters kind of in their own little array. Maybe one of the reasons why I restarted the organization as well is because I did realize that I wanted to include the item frames for the item of the critter itself. So that's another reason for the redesign and restructure of everything, to make sure I added space for the item frame to display the critter itself. Because the critter sprite in item form is quite different in almost every case than the critter. Well, not almost every case, I guess. You see the duck and the owl and the bunny, and those ones are almost the same, but the dragonflies are a different perspective, and I think all the bugs, like in the lantern or jar placed critters, are pretty much all different. The worms are different. So then I started coming up with a more structured organization, and you can see kind of now we got the underground critters more generally grouped together. The snails and then the worm is next to each other and whatnot. So I had generally it organized better at that point. But there was still quite a bit of room left to detail and add greenery and furnishing of different kinds. But I figured I would leave that there for right now and move on to the gem critter circle. So again, a different circle size, smaller this time, would be plenty to fit all the gem critters in. And then got that placed where it would fit next to the first circle. cut through with the little exploration platform. And then thirdly, I sketched out the circle for the gold critters. The smallest of the three by far, and just had enough space for all of the gold critters. And this one changed the little gem in the bottom to a much smaller. Sadly, only 1 block wide instead of 2, because I didn't want to make a 2 block wide center for the circle. Looking back on it, I probably could have made the 2 block center work. But I always just find that having a single block center in general kind of gives you more options for furnishing and symmetry. But obviously there are exceptions to that. And knowing what the final product is, I think I could have done just fine with a 2 block center for the third circle, actually, but it turned out all right. But I did start by making sure that I had enough area space to maneuver my platform up through, and then just quickly initially laid out how many different platforms I needed and where I would put the gem critters. One of the reasons why they take up so much space because they're all squirrels and bunnies, so they're the largest of the terrariums, and so take up a bit of space to fit in. And again, with the open feel for the background walls, I just went with the underground theme, but was sure to leave lots of cavities and gaps here and there to allow for that feel of openness to remain. Again, I do try to use my little echo painted item frame in front of the planked wall trick for the little shelving display for items. And so I put that next to all of the terrariums to display the actual critter item itself. Let's see, it looks like I don't have notes on how many of each critter there are, but I think they're noted in game on the signs. I have my little welcome sign for the section, of course, and another important part is the teleporter, which I think I had again forgotten about here, but I think I'm able to build it into the main overworld, the main forest-themed critter circle pretty easily, just right in the center, if I remember right. Then finally, the smallest circle for the gold critters. I wasn't planning on having it out of stone. I was just building the structure and the platforms to initially have an idea of the space that I needed and how I was going to arrange things. But obviously I wanted to do it in gold, so I started getting that out next. Got some gold platforms to transition with, or into rather. Some bricks to replace the stone, and I actually I was messing around with the difference between the gold brick and the ancient gold bricks, the original sprite, and kind of which one I liked more. I think I do end up liking the newer gold bricks just for this specifically, I feel like they have a little bit higher level of what's the word? A little bit more luster or brilliance or dazzle to them. I don't know. They feel a little bit more grand, I guess. A little bit shinier. But anyway, although this circle was totally enclosed with the wall completely complete, I did want a cool looking window to let plenty of light in, so I tried to make a kind of a unique shaped window, and then my idea was to build some sort of feature in the center that would depict like a valuable very high class carved statue of some kind or something like that, or maybe a fountain that was pretty fancy. So I was messing around with what my options would be for that. Again, I also, you might notice on the right, the platform I just kind of ended for now, but I did eventually want to continue it and tie it together with the other parts of Tigaria for exploration means. And to be honest, I don't remember what I ended up doing. I think I put maybe a little spiral staircase that goes straight up and then over those trees on top of the mountain. I don't remember for sure. Make a little adjustment to the window in the back and try to, yeah, again, try to make it as fancy as possible. So I've probably mentioned this here and there before, but this part right here, once I place all of the gold critters in there, basically there are 2 of every gold critter in the game. One in its display form in either the jar or terrarium, but then also in item form I place it next to it. So between 2 of every gold critter, this section right here, this little circle, as far as time goes to acquire the items on display, this is by far the most valuable part of the entirety of Tigaria. Gold critters are pretty hard to come by. A lot of them are. Now there are a few that you can set up farms to get quite a lot of relatively quickly, but there are also a lot that I feel like are really tough to get. A couple of which are the gold ladybug and the gold seahorse. Those 2, I think there are ways to set up farms to maximize your chances and you spawn a bunch of those critter types to then have a chance of getting the gold ones. But as far as my experience goes, in all of the time that I have in Terraria, granted a lot of which is put in before those critters even existed, but I've only ever gotten 2 gold ladybugs, and they're both on display here in Tigaria. I can't remember if I've only gotten 2 or maybe I at some point found a 3rd gold seahorse, but I may only have 2 of those as well. So then once the critters are basically all kind of got their place, got their organization and space allotted, then I could go back and start adding in details and furnishing in all 3 of the circles. So I did quite a bit already in the gold one with kind of a custom fountain statue design in the center, and then I hopped back to the other circles to add certain things here and there. So I did go back to my idea of having a custom living tree, only this time instead of to hold the critters, I just wanted it to hold some furniture for decoration and atmosphere aesthetic. I also got the teleporter included there in the center of the first circle here, so that was good and ready to go. And then, I guess, yeah, just lighting and the rest of the touch-up furniture. Not really anything other to break, any other big breakthroughs that I found or required, I think, in this part. Time to grab as much themed furniture as I could. Lots of plants and flowers and the mushrooms, orange bloodroot, and then certain paintings to fit the theme of green. And then got going on placing this stuff to fill in. There are, I think there initially there were a few things that I had forgotten and left out, like the what's it called? The lava serpent bowl is... What's that critter called? It's kind of special because it's not actually a critter. It's just specifically a decoration furniture item. But it's just the same as like the goldfish bowl or pupfish in a bowl, furniture-wise. And it's obtained from... the hellstone and what's the other crate variant from the underworld or from lava? Hellstone and obsidian crates. That's right. But from there you can find the lava serpent bowl or something to that degree, and so. I did end up squeezing that in next to the other bowl critters. And finally, I also did need to connect it with the adjacent display of pets and mounts. Added a little walkway for exploration, and then got going on linking all of the lights together. I keep noticing other little lights here and there that I had either placed after the fact or just forgotten and missed wiring in initially, so I was constantly trying to connect all those and get them fixed. Then I do the ice cream parlor and the drink shop lighting as well. Try to get that all working as it should. And there we have the critters ready to go. So then over on the left hand side in this bottom corner was kind of the last space in need of filling in the core of Tigaria, or what this area that we have here. So I went ahead and got going with large floating platform, and my idea initially was to have this be the die display. It would kind of go along with the theme of paintings. Next to them I would have the dies. However, for the die display, I really wanted to have every set or every die type exampled and presented not only in item form in the item frame, but also on like a mannequin of armor. And so I realized that there are how many are there? Because I was looking into that, started organizing them and stuff. There's 119 different dies that I collected and organized. And I realized if I was going to do a mannequin for every one, that actually is quite a bit of space. That is a much larger build than I have room for right here to oppose the critters section. So instead, I realized I could easily fit in the paint display. So that's what I went for. I went and got ahead and started constructing Guido's Paint Shop and Art Studio is what this came out to be. So it's a medium-sized structure here. Red brick for the main block type. And then I started messing around with what kind of roof design would fit well onto that. It's basically a large first floor story there with a kind of a big studio there in the front with tables and art supplies to have classes or stuff like that was the idea. And then the next room behind it was kind of the utility room, the back room, which then if you go up from there accesses the second, third, and fourth stories respectively in progression. But still working on the roof color here. I was really trying to find something that fit well with the red brick. I think what I had is regular like red. Is it called a red brick? Just the regular bricks that you make from mud. And then I mixed that in with crimstone bricks, I believe is what it was. But those I painted red, maybe not deep red, but regular red, and matched the color pretty dang closely. So it created a nice texture there. I kind of got figured out the shape that I wanted for the roof, and it was mostly with actuated chlorophyte bricks, but I still wasn't really happy with that color, so I start changing it up and I end up finding the ancient cobalt bricks, and that color suddenly contrasted really nicely with the red brick walls. And so I found that out and then went ahead with replacing the background walls for the roof with chlorophyte brick walls, but with I believe sky blue paint for them, maybe deep sky blue possibly. But this teal blue, I guess it's kind of just a bright blue color actually, is what I really liked, what I found to go for the roof color. In that I felt like that contrasted really nicely with the red brick color, and that's what I went with. As far as the floor inside, most of it's just that gray brick, but I did have the main studio room there in the bottom. I just gray painted chlorophyte brick, I believe is what that is. And that just gave the floor kind of like a shiny tiled look, like an art studio having a tiled floor. A lot of times you'll see that for cleanliness and ruggedness. It's tough and easy to clean up paint and whatever else spills on it, clay and pottery stuff. Of course it does have the downside of breaking almost anything you drop on it, anything brittle, but I felt like that floor fit decently well for the theme. On the roof I wanted to see if I could do a little paint can design, and so I was able to do it actually pretty well with a little bit of the blue, again cobalt bricks. I actually end up mixing in cobalt with ancient cobalt bricks for a little extra texture. But I used those for the paint on the paint bucket, a little bit of stair platform for the handle folded down, And then the bucket itself is just a white Dynasty wall, which has that dark brown border kind of on the sides, which worked out really well for the little bucket build, I guess. Then one of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of this whole build, was the color wheel that I hung off of the upper balcony there. That turned out really cool with the Gemspark, or no, it's not actually Gemspark walls. I believe it's sail that painted in various colors, but then lit very well with the diamond Gemspark blocks that I included in the frame of the color wheel. And that, of course, hangs from the upper balcony with a little latticed awning built onto it, which I planned to furnish fully later on. And I started trying to continue with the basic wall features like windows and stairs and this upper center window in the roof upstairs. And then in the end, I had basically these 4 stories to fill in, and of course, its main function is the paint display. So I needed to display all of the different paints and coatings and paint tools. So like the paint brushes and all of that stuff I wanted to have on display for show. But I also wanted it to have a more functional and vibrant feel as far as theme and purpose for each part of the building. Oh yeah, another thing, in addition to having the actual items of the paint on display, I wanted to display each of the colors in a gradient on a somewhat flat block palette. So I ended up, I got these platinum bricks out, which produce these sort of segmented squares, and that's what I wanted to use to display the different paint colors on a block itself. And so that's my idea there in the main studio room. I had that laid out to demonstrate all the different paint colors on a block itself, and I felt like platinum bricks were a good baseline block to do that on. Of course, smooth marble would also be a kind of a decent option, or maybe even like white team blocks. But I felt like the platinum was kind of the best for just smoothness and color display. So that was my idea there. And yeah, just pretty straightforward, trying to figure out how to make each room at this point have a unique purpose and fit the theme overall. So grabbed a bunch of various different wall types, some lighting, mainly steampunk lights, but used some other stuff here and there, I believe. We'll see, I guess, about that. And then before I get too far along with the furnishing, I did want to make sure that I had the space to array all of the items that I wanted to display. And those items, as I kind of alluded to, would include the paints themselves, both in item frame as well as demonstrated on the platinum bricks. I wanted to include the paint brushes, the rollers, the scrapers, which there are 2 of each. I think that's right. And then I'm trying to think of what else there is as far as like technical items that I would consider to be part of the paint display or go with it. I think there are a few others, but I'm blanking. Obviously, the painter also sells all these various wallpaper types, so those wouldn't be too far off to include here. But lucky for me, I already had those included and displayed in the block displayed just above us here, so those were already all set, ready to go. My idea for the upper balcony was to have a little scene of outdoor, like, canvas painting in action. So I wanted to see if I could hang up mini, like, handcrafted custom paintings in progress, basically. I wanted to use furniture items and blocks to reproduce or to depict a painting that somebody was working on, rather than just using the in-game paintings. So I'll get to that in a moment, but they turned out pretty good too. Grab some banners to try to use for window curtains. I do also have a little bathroom included on the second floor there on the right side, so that was kind of nice. Just real simple sink and toilet. But I think here I use the technique that I was talking about of putting a painting inside of an item frame. I think I do that above the sink here. Eventually I do. Where I put the darkness painting in an item frame above the sink to be a small mirror above the sink, and it works out really nice. Here we go. I got all of the different paints actually hung up in the item frames, so they're all arrayed as they should. I sort of have one floor for the regular paints, another floor for the deep paints, and then especially in the little utility room is the special, like, you have the negative and the shadow paints. Well, I guess also just the gray, white, and black that don't go along as well with the rest of the color gradient. Oh, and here I go trying to come up with the little custom painting display on the balcony. So this one turned out pretty cool. It's a little yellow painted, what actually is it, a bubble? I don't remember if it's a bubble or a slime block, but yellow painted for the sunshine, and then a little piece of the twig sprout placed by the rubble maker for a miniature tree in front of just some green and blue painted canvas behind it to be a pretty neat little outdoor landscape scene that somebody's working on. Although it's in portrait orientation, I guess. Awkward. I did get the demonstration painted up there, so the platinum bricks have all the paintings or the paint colors put on them. The other blocks, there's black and white and negative paint as well displayed there. That one's kind of a weird one to display, that's for sure. And in general, just quite a bit of furniture everywhere. Everything that I could think of possibly fitting in thematically, I tried to include, and it got very, very full, which turned out pretty nice. It definitely has the full art studio chaos vibe, I guess. But I do really like the overall product that it became. It came out quite cool. Wanted to add in a little signage on the front so I could label it as the paint display, or actually Guido's like art studio or whatever, paint shop and art studio or something like that. A few more small windows here and there, some planters, and yeah, just more little details added in. I still have a little bit of green space, grass on both sides, especially on the right here in front. So I think I'm able to grow a tree or two in there and get that filled in. Yep, looks like it's tree growing time. First jungle tree that I tried to grow was completely pitiful. Interestingly, I did choose to go with the jungle trees for kind of the lime green leaf color. I felt like that was going to be the best contrast to the color scheme that I already had going on with the bricks. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I went with. And then a bunch of plants and flowers to be growing outside. Perhaps Guido grows these plants to make his paints and his dyes out of. That would make sense. Or I guess actually paints. Guido doesn't do dye. That's the dye trader. And I can't think of any of the names that the dye trader has now. And then a quick little map view of the current Tigaria here. Messed around a little bit more with the actuation of the roof, and couldn't quite decide what was the best way to go about that. But after the paint shop, I moved back up to one of the few remaining empty spaces here in the space we're working with, which is the top center right below the boss display area that we did in the last episode. So here is where I wanted to include my personal signature for Tigaria. And of course the title of the world itself. So I was planning to write in large letters, Tigaria by Tigitar. That's kind of all there is to it. I had the vision of purple and green theme with a certain level of grandeur to it, I guess. As far as fonts go, I guess I'm definitely realizing now that I've never come up with any super creative or neat font designs. That could be something I could look into though, but to start with, I spaced out or found my spacing for the letters, decided roughly what size I wanted, so I ended up settling on a 4-block thick design, and then I would later figure out how to best detail it. And I built the letters on kind of a similar curve that I had the boss display capsules arranged on. But the weird thing is, so I'm trying to think. Basically, I aligned the bottoms, I think, of all of the letters on this curve. But when I looked at it just fully in map view, or more took a look at the big picture, it looked weird. Like, it was weird that I think part of my problem was after I do the leg, or whatever you call it, the bottom part of the G. I forget, I don't know what you call it, but when I do the bottom part of the G, it really hangs down way lower than the A next to it. So it just looked weird and off, even though technically I had it aligned on this curve that matched the one above it. So anyway, I just remember that throwing me off for a while, and eventually figuring out that I just made some manual adjustments. I didn't go with the perfect measurements on the curve that I had. I just eyeballed it, and it looked way better. So it's one of those honestly not very uncommon examples of eyeballs telling a much cleaner story than measuring in some cases. So I just remember trying to figure that out for a while here. Either way, I went and started on the actual texture design of the letters. Tried to play around with what kind of block combination I could come up with to make glowing and cool and not too crazy or busy letters. So I try out crystal and lights and different glowing blocks, and in the end I do start realizing the value of this dark gray and black color scheme with I think some luminite and some variations of the luminite, which they added in, as well as like platinum brick and maybe I want to say there might be some crystal and maybe some palladium columns. It's hard to say for sure. I can't remember, but you can actually see if you just pause the video and look closely at what items I'm placing. That's probably just do that and don't pay attention to what I'm saying here. You should probably have the audio muted and are just listening to cool music instead of me talk anyway, but just in case you accidentally have the commentary still on, I'll keep talking, or at least try to. Anyway, the general idea I had for color-wise was kind of glowing purple for the name of Tigaria, and then below it I would put Tigitar, and that one would be green. Just because I like those colors, basically. And they're the colors that I themed Tigaria around. Mainly the green, but again, mostly just because I like those colors. Here's where I start going with the bottom part of the G. And I did have to mess around a little bit trying to get the symmetry and spacing to work out. Play with how to do different curves and corners, because a lot of the different parts of the fonts are slightly different, so lots of parts I can sort of copy over to between letters, but some of them I just kind of have to make it up and wing it here and there. But basically the G is one entire A on the top part, but then instead of ending on the bottom right for the bottom right tail or stub or whatever, it just continues down into another basically same dimensions as the A down below, only not closing the gap on the left. And then finally the capital T to to start things off, and I just had to make maybe a little adjustment here and there to get a good size and spacing figured out. Now that I had the pattern for like segments of the font structure, I kind of was partially limited by that for how the size of the letter would turn out. And here's probably where I start realizing kind of my mistake as far as curvature and layout. And I start doing a lot of measurements, hemming and hawing, and trying to figure out how to fix this, because the curve just did not look good. So maybe part of my problem was I based the curve off of the top of the letters instead of the bottom, because I didn't know where the bottom was going to be, because I didn't know how tall each letter was going to be at first. So that probably is where I went wrong. Anyway, I do start re-examining the whole arc here and figuring out where I actually need to align each letter to. So there was a bit of a process as far as that whole thing went, because I already built like 90% of the letters, and then I was like, all right, I'm moving them all, so tear them all down and shift them around. So the G here had to go down quite a lot. I moved the T and the I up. But yeah, I think my mistake was just aligning the tops of the letters instead of the bottom, which is how letters are supposed to be. So I don't know why I did that. Now that I had the whole pattern and the format down, though, it obviously went a lot quicker on the second go of construction. I had my pattern to go off of. I placed all the blocks, then I go back to hammer them up, and yeah, basically a lot quicker at that point. It's honestly not too hard to move something you already built, as long as you, because you have that framework to fill in. Basically, it's really not bad. Got all the hammering done, then I go for the background walls, and that might be close to what there is for the world title. I don't remember now if I think I still have to adjust something, because the G and the A are too flat next to each other in the middle. I feel like I move the A a little bit still. I move it up just a hair, but I don't know, maybe not. Then I move on to my, I guess, signature, or I wanted to put made by or just by Tigitar. So I figure out where kind of the spacing to put that in. My name is much smaller than the world title, so I was easily able to figure out how to fit that in. And much more simply, I just make it flat and align all of the bottoms of the letters, and it's super easy just from the start. As mentioned, though, I wanted it to be glowing green instead of purple, but I still kept the similar theme as far as the dark, the rest of the block palette. I basically just switched out the purples for greens. and it didn't take too much to figure out a pattern that I could pretty easily repeat for the whole font for each letter. And of course the little by between, I figured I didn't actually need color for. I just left it in all dark gray black, and that pretty much made it work out pretty nice. I still don't know if I moved that A though. Oh, and here I go, remembering that the little lava serpent. Oh, and I had also forgotten the jellyfish. That's not good. I had forgotten the jellyfish there. Do a little platform connectivity as well. Try to figure out some way to tie in the platform over here. End up just going with the little spiral as classic, I think. It is kind of a little bit funny how I ended up having to curve the platform above the gold critter circle, whereas on the left side it's much more open without that snowy mountain next to it. So I just built a larger spiral staircase to go connect up to the outside of the block display. Also needed to add the teleporter in to the painting, or not painting, teleporter next to the paint shop. So I had that accessibility infrastructure for later on. And then it's another section of wiring. I did want to do up the title here with my name so that I could, I guess maybe it's just actuation. I'm trying to remember if, oh yeah, I think I add lights. I must add floating lights in additionally, but I do, as a baseline, want to have actuation abilities for the words so that I can shut them off if I want to avoid collision and make navigating around a bit easier. Now the last part for this episode here, besides maybe odd touch-ups here and there that I keep running around for, is the mini-map. I had this little section open here on the left side underneath the title, and so to oppose my signature on the right, I thought it would be cool. I finally came up with an idea to fill the space, and it was to build a miniature version of what I so far had in Tigaria itself. So I called it like the mini map, where I just build a mini compact version of Tigaria and try to include visual indicators of all the different sections and basically be as accurate as I could, but just in this really tiny area. So I got all of the smallest types of furniture that I could out and tried to figure out what the best way to add as many micro details as I could was gonna be. I had quite a bit of fun with this, but it did also take quite some time. Another bunch of overview snips of the state of Tigaria here as I try to rebuild it in small form. But basically, as I finish this up, it would be where I had designated Tigaria Part 1.2 completed. So it had basically this first initial wave of item displays built and included, and sort of encompassed within this somewhat enclosed structure at this point. Like, it actually has kind of a shape to it. It still needed a lot of expansion in the future for different displays, but at least it had kind of a cohesive feel for the core of Tigaria itself. So that was kind of where I was able to call it Tigaria Part 1.2. And at this point, I had 1,166 excuse me, hours on my character, meaning that from world creation to now, which started at 342 hours. What would that be, like 800 hours or whatever? 342. Now I lost my place where I was. 342 to 1166. So like 824 hours or something like that. If I'm thinking about that right. So yeah, a bit over 800 hours to produce this part right here. But importantly, that does include a lot of background collecting, organizing, and getting items all lined up and ready to go, and also just planning and brainstorming and trying to figure out how and where to build things. So there's quite a lot of time outside of just the block placement and building footage that we have here, obviously. So, but that's basically gonna be part 8 here for Tigaria. So yeah, as you can tell, we're a little over halfway through the overall timeline of the world as it is to this point, and I'll let you just enjoy the finalization of my little mini map here, and then maybe some random running around I do at the end of here too, but I don't remember. The final couple minutes of part number 8, right? Yep. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with this. As always, thanks a whole bunch for watching. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit, had some fun listening to the commentary, or even better, had it muted and were just listening to music and playing other games and on the other side. But either way, thanks a whole bunch for tuning in, and I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day.